Hello and welcome to part 5 of my beginners yoga series, and today we're going to try for the first time in this series some twists. The equipment that you'll need today, if you have them, a couple of yoga blocks, that's optional and you can probably replace those with a cushion if necessary, a yoga belt or something sturdy equivalent, and a chair. Now we're going to begin with Tadasana, which we've begun all the practices with, and as we've done with all of the other parts of the beginning series, we're going to do it in a slightly different way. So if you start out on your mat, today we'll do Tadasana with feet slightly apart. So take your feet approximately hip distance apart, and we'll do standard Tadasana first. So spread the toes, take the weight back into the heels, lift up through the legs, tailbone down, navel back, lift the spine, broaden the chest, allow the arms to release down, bring balance to your head, and release. So we're going to, quite predictably, given that this session is about twists, we're going to twist in Tadasana. Now, to be honest, this is probably the most difficult twist I'm going to show you on some levels today, because our bodies are made to wiggle and squiggle all over the place. They're meant to move, they're meant to be able to reach and stretch and contort, so we can do all sorts of things. We've got a very adaptable body that we live in. But when we work in yoga with twists, we have to control which part of our body does the twisting. And some poses, especially when you get more advanced, the shape will dictate to some extent where the twist has to happen. But in these beginning poses, where the twist looks a bit more simple, the control can actually be more difficult. So let me show you exactly what I mean. I'm going to turn sideways and I'm going to put my hands on my hips just to give me a bit of an awareness and to give my hands an anchor point. So if I stand in Tadasana and then I begin to twist to you, I could just turn like that. And what I've done there is there's a lot of weight gone onto my left leg. My right leg has gone very light. I've leant slightly. I've turned my hips. I can feel a slight twist in my knee. So I've moved all sorts of parts of my body in order to be able to turn to face you. But I can be quite square with the shoulders and I can turn and look at you on the camera. So if we're turning in everyday life, that's really helpful. But if we allow our body to work however it wants to, the strongest, most able parts will always be the parts that work, and the least flexible parts will always be the ones that don't work. And so over time, guess what happens? The most able parts get overworked, and the parts that we didn't work stop knowing how to work. So that's why in twists in yoga, often a lot of the emphasis is about making sure we put the twist where we want it to go, and quite often that is in the more reluctant parts of our body. So if we do this Tadasana twist again, and you can do it with me this time even if you didn't do it last time, feet hip distance apart, and put your hands on your hips, stand in your Tadasana, and all the twist this time is going to come above the hips, not including the hips. So everything from my hands down will stay exactly, hopefully, as much as I can manage, facing exactly as it is now. But then we'll turn first to the right and then to the left as much as we can above that. Okay? So hands on the hips. Be in your Tadasana, so steady, strong and stable in the legs and lifted in the body. Now, particularly hold on with the leg muscles. I've given you that instruction in Tadasana quite frequently. Notice your left hand if you're turning to the right, and just make sure it helps the left side of your pelvis stay facing front. So I'm not pulling it, just got my hand there so I know what's going on. And I begin to turn to the right. As much as possible, not disturbing the rest of me. And what you'll probably notice is that that's really a lot harder. And I can't turn anything like I could turn before. But I can feel twist coming into the stiffer parts of my body, which generally they're going to be your middle and upper back. Will find it more difficult to twist, or more exactly your spine. So let's try that to the left. Standing in Tadasana, Holding the pelvis level and turning. This time I'm going to my left. You just make sure you go to your second side. When we twist, a good habit to be in is lifting and lengthening as you breathe in, and as you breathe out you keep the length, but you see if you can find a bit more space to turn. Come to face the front. We're just going to do that one more time on each side, and if you can, add in an awareness of where the weight goes on your feet, because I said when I first showed the first time that to turn without thinking I'd really change the weight uneven on my feet. So I want to try and keep my feet evenly weighted. So we're in Tadasana. We're even on the feet here. We turn to the right. You can let your hands go around if you want to, but try and keep the hand on the front of the hip so that you know it isn't turning, and then look with your brain at the soles of your feet and see what's happened to the weight. So I could feel I was definitely heavier on my left side, so I'm going to try and even that up, and I'd also leant towards the balls of my feet, and then face the front. Last one. So in your Tadasana, just capture what that evenness feels like before you start to turn, so that then you can hold on to the evenness. So turn into the left, keeping the hips, the legs, the feet even. Watch the feet, look at the feet. How do they feel? Again, I can feel the weight has changed. It's heavier on the side I'm turning away from. And then face the front. And release. So just let yourself step out of there. So the reason why that is the hardest twist we're probably going to do today is because the only part of you that is anchored, touching the floor, is the sole of your foot. And no matter how big feet you may have, they're not very big compared to the rest of the whole of your body. We're going to get our chairs now. And we're going to go back to a pose that we haven't done since part one, which is Uttanasana, the forward bend. So we're going to have feet hip distance apart, and we're going to put our hands on the chair seat. So as I say, we did that in part one, but I don't know how long ago you did part one. So we'll just go over some of the basics. Feet hip distance apart, you begin in your Tadasana and you fold here. Bring your hands down to the chair. We're having some support under our hands so that if you have stiff hamstrings, you've got a chance to give them some space, but also so that we can reach the chest forward. So this is known as the half pose, because we're not going to the full, we're not aiming to fold fully in half, whether or not we can even do that, but we're actually aiming to extend the spine. As you extend the spine forwards, make sure your tailbone goes down so that you don't arch your lower back, push it towards the floor. We do not want to do that. Now, we're going to come back up. Now, if you know that you have slightly more flexibility in your legs and the chair is a little bit high for you, you could take your hands to the floor, but only if you can do that with the extended back and straight legs, or you can take some other equipment. I'm going to use a couple of yoga bricks for the second time so that you are a little bit lower down. Okay, so we'll do it a second time. You don't have to do that, you can totally stay with the chair. Or if you've only got a tiny bit more, then you can just bend your elbows a little bit and that'll give you some more extension. Fold at the front of the hips, bring the hands down. Still lifting up with the legs, tailbone goes down, over the back, down towards the heels or the space on the floor behind the heels. Lift the chest forwards. And then if you come up, I will show you what we're going to do. We're going to bring one hand into the centre. So if you're working on the chair, you just put your hand in the middle of the chair, which should be directly underneath your chest. If you're working with something like I've got, then you bring one hand directly under the chest. For me, it's my left hand first. You're going to put your right hand onto your back. We're going to keep the legs stable and we're going to turn. So you can see how this is related. Now that extension forwards is really important. That tailbone over is really important, and not twisting or wiggling is really important. So twisting in the spine or revolving in the spine, yes, but not twisting or wiggling the hips or the legs. Okay, so if you didn't join in that first side, just pause and do the first side. And then join back in, and we're going to do the second side. So bring your other hand to the centre. For me it's my right hand. So my left hand will go on my back. Before I do any more, I'm going to fix in my brain and in space where these legs are. And particularly this area, seeing as I'm turning away from this, it will want to come to. So keep this area nice and solid and turn. So if you're turning to the left like me, it's the top of the right leg that will want to come along as well. If you're unfamiliar with twisting, if you feel stiff, don't push into these. Just find a space which is challenging, but that doesn't create strong pain. And then breathe in and come up. One of the things you have to learn in your yoga practice, and it's just about the most important thing you'll probably learn for your safety, is what is the difference between the pain that we experience when we stretch and challenge our body and the pain that we might experience when we're at danger of creating damage. They are different kinds of pain. And as you might imagine, it's quite important to know the difference. If you feel pain and you're not sure, then think the worst and take yourself back into a safer position, just in case. So that was Uttanasana with a twist. We're going to do it one more time. Bring your hand down. In fact, I'll show it with the chair this second time. You work with whatever height you need. So feet are directly under the hips, extending the chest forwards, the sternum forwards. Bring your left hand into the centre line of your body, so it's underneath the chest. Right hand onto your back. Keep the legs strong and lifting. I'm turning to the right, so it's the top of my left leg. I need to especially watch and turn. So it's turning in the top chest, the middle back and the shoulders. And then face down again, so into the Uttanasana not twisting position. Bring the right hand into the centre, left hand onto your back and turn away, like so. And then face the chair again or the floor, into the centre for a moment, and then breathe in and come up. We're going to use the chair for the next pose, and we're actually going to sit on the chair dramatically. I don't think we've actually sat on the chair before now. And sit towards the edge so that most of the back of your legs are free of the chair and your feet are nice and stable on the floor. It's ideal to have a chair that has a flat seat. So you'll see, if you ever see my yoga chair sideways, because it's a yoga chair, it's got a really flat seat. Choose the best chair you've got in your house, and if you've got a choice between one where the seat is quite sloped back, because some seats really slope you back into them, choose one that's a little bit flatter. But either way, come towards the front so that your legs are parallel to the floor and so that your feet are flat on the floor. If your chair's a little bit high for you, put some yoga blocks or books underneath the feet so that your feet can reach the floor. And then, surprisingly, we're going to twist. So in Uttanasana, we had the feet on the floor, that's the pose we just did, and we had the hands down. So we started to stabilise things a bit more than Tadasana, where we only had the feet on the floor. Now, to a great extent, we have obviously put our bottoms down and our feet down. Doesn't mean the legs can't move, because we can shift, but it's harder. So this twist is easier to control than either of the previous two. Still need to watch it, but that's the theory. So we're facing the front. We're going to put our right hand around and find the chair back or the chair seat, whatever your hand reaches fairly easily without skewing yourself round. So again, keep your legs square, and then put your left hand ideally over to the outer thigh, but if that's too far, if it really distorts you, then put it onto the other leg, and then we turn. We're going to do this a couple of times, maybe 3 times on each side. So then face the front, and we'll do the other side. So you take your hand around, find whatever's convenient in your shaped chair, and then take your hand across the body to either leg and turn. And then face the front. So what we're going to do the second time is pay attention to the knees. So we're going to turn our chest around to the side, but we're going to look to the front, because if you look down at yourself, when you turn, for example, to the right, what you'll find is that the right leg kind of shrinks and the left leg grows, and that's because we're moving the hips on the chair. And because we're trying to move these stiff parts of the back, we're not trying to move from the hips. We don't want them to move. So we're going to watch the knees and make sure they stay square where they started. So sit up tall again, reach around to the back of the chair, and this time remember you're going to look forwards at your knees the whole time. And you're not just looking for the sake of looking, so you can begin to turn now. You're looking to notice if they move, and ideally, before they move, you're stopping them from moving. So if you notice that the right leg has shrunk, the knee's gone back, and the left knee's gone forwards, just unturn a little bit, hold them in space, and then this time, only turn as far as you can go, while making that only come from the upper and middle back. Keep your tailbone gently tucked in, keep your navel gently drawn back. You can turn your shoulders, but keep your eyes on the prize, keep your eyes on the knees, face the front again. Exactly what you do with the hand that reaches around behind you at this stage, it doesn't matter so much, but make sure it's comfortable, okay? When we make the twist more extreme, or if we were doing a twist that emphasised the shoulders, we would choose particular positions for the hands, but right now we're thinking about the legs, aren't we? So sit square, reach your left hand around behind you, watch those knees, and don't allow them to move. So as you get more experienced in yoga, you know the potential mistakes and you watch out for them before they happen, so that you can correct the action before you see it. So rather than going wrong and then making it right, which to be honest we have to do sometimes, but if we can, we actually use our knowledge and awareness of what might go wrong, and we correct it before it happens, and then face the front. I know that's not always possible, but that's what practice does for us. It gives us some insight. Now for our third time, we're actually going to let ourselves turn from the hips, because it's not wrong. It's just that if you let the legs and hips turn, you will feel it's very different, and that the turn comes much lower down the back. Okay, so let's feel what that's like. If you're working with back problems, you need to make sure that you go with care. So with this variation, even though we're knowingly allowing more things to turn, we're not just throwing caution to the wind. What we are doing is knowingly allowing more things to turn. So just bear that in mind as you work. Sitting square again, lifting behind, reaching behind you with your right hand, and then begin to turn. So you will see the knees move, and that's okay this time. Don't let them go in, out, or wobble all around. So you're still working with control and awareness. So we're allowing them to move this time because we have made a choice to allow the turn to begin much lower down the spine. So beginning to turn. And what I can feel when I do it like this is that generally that is bringing much more turn into the soft middle spine, or soft lower and middle spine. So in this part of the torso, there aren't any ribs, and so there's more space to turn, and I can feel that happening. And then face the front, and we'll go to the other side. So reach your hand behind you. This time we allow the legs to go a little, but we're allowing it to happen. It's not happening without our awareness or knowledge. It's happening with our awareness and our knowledge, because we know we're doing it, and we know we're doing it for a reason, which is to move the twist to a different part of the spine. These twists shouldn't create pain. You can feel which parts of your back they're happening in. Occasionally you might get cramp, or you might feel that it's difficult, you can feel resistance, but there shouldn't be pinching, shooting nerve pain type pains. Those are no part of yoga. So from sitting on a chair where we have our bottom down and our feet down, the last thing we're going to do today is sit on the floor. So here is where, if necessary, you will use your blocks or cushion. We're going to work with our legs along the mat, but I'm just going to turn sideways so you can see why you might need them. So when we sit with legs straight, which is what you're going to be asked to do, that is quite a strong hamstring stretch for a lot of people. So if you bend your knees, and that allows you to sit up and straight in the back, but then you straighten your legs, and as you straighten your legs you feel that happening in your back. And this area here, move my block so you can see, this area drops back. And no matter what you do, if you have to keep your legs straight, you can't lift that up. But as soon as you bend your legs, you can lift it up. What that's telling you is your hamstrings aren't yet quite long enough to allow you to sit flat on the floor. So instead, 1, 2, 3 blocks, or add cushions or books as necessary. The higher it is, the more relief to your hamstrings you will get. So you will sit on your equipment and you will straighten your legs out, and you will find that allows you to sit up. Now, if you're just at the beginning of your stretching journey, and even with quite a high lift you still struggle to straighten the legs, then for today you can keep your legs slightly bent. But if you can, find a height that allows you to sit with your legs straight. So I'm going to turn and face you, and you're going to need a belt. So it doesn't have to be a belt, it can be something that will act like a belt. Place that belt around your feet. You're just going to pull gently but firmly back on the belt to sit up tall. That area that I showed dropping back when I was just sat sideways, make sure that moves in. The tailbone, as I keep saying, will still be feeling like it's lengthening down and going in. So the area that I showed is in fact the whole of the sacrum moving in, and the sacrum is the triangular bone that the tailbone is the bottom of. It isn't your waist pushing forwards, okay? So your tummy button doesn't push forwards. Draw the shoulders down, sit up. This is Dandasana. This is the seated equivalent of Tadasana. It's the basic seated pose. Just let go of the belt for a moment. Put the tails where you can reach them. Put your fingertips beside you and help those. Use your fingers pressing down to help you sit up. And then we're going to twist. So you're going to take your hands back to the belt. Put your left hand on the belt. Your right hand goes slightly around to the back, not too far. And like we did with the knees, we're actually going to look at the feet as we turn. So we're not going to turn the head. We're going to turn the inside elbow up towards the ceiling to let the shoulder go down. Little bend in the elbow there. And then we're going to sit up tall and we're going to turn. Now this belt helps stop my feet moving forwards and backwards. Otherwise they'd do just what they did on the chair. One leg would get long, one leg would get short. Face the front again. Swap hands. Take your left hand behind you if your right hand is what's holding the belt. Turn your inside elbow up towards the ceiling. Relax this shoulder. Left hand behind you. Sit up and turn. Looking at your toes. You'll see my feet are still extending upwards. I'm still pulling back on the belt so that my feet have something to push against. It's a two-way action going there. And we turn to the side. And then face the front. Let's have a go without the belt. So like sat on the floor, as I said, the feet will want to move like that, but we're not going to allow them. So like sat on the chair. Sitting up, relax the shoulders down, feet point to the ceiling. So I'm not having a nice sit down, I'm having a very active sit down and my legs are working really hard. Bring your hand behind you, your right hand. Bring your left hand across your legs if you can. Turn. Still look at the feet as you turn. It's not a helpful habit to look over your shoulder too fast because it tends to throw your attention over there, and your attention needs to be in here and out towards the feet. So when you're learning poses, look at your body if you can. Face the front, and then bring your right hand across the body, left hand behind, look at your feet with your eyes, look at the rest of your body with your awareness, and turn. Breathe to lift up, breathe out, and see if you can find some more space to turn. Twists should never be forced. We shouldn't force any yoga position, but particularly twists. We give them time and space to happen. And then face the front. Now we're going to do one last one. Use the belt again, or in fact, choose whichever you preferred. Because this time, I want you to imagine that your sitting bones, which are the bony part of your bottom, are like your feet in Tadasana. So last time, in part 4, we worked on weight on either foot and evening it up, and I've mentioned that a few times in Tadasana. Now we're going to imagine our sitting bones like our feet and keep them even on both sides as we turn, because just like when we turn and stand, the weight will shift and we don't want that. Okay, so hold the belt in your left hand, take your right hand behind you. You can do just the same if you're choosing not to use the belt. Sit up. Now don't do anything before you have connected and become aware of the weight on your sitting bones on either side of your bottom. Find that place in your body and keep looking at that with your awareness as you turn. So now my eyes are looking at my feet, but actually what I'm intently looking at is my sitting bones. And as I twist, today what I can feel is I'm getting heavier on that side. And often it's because we're leaning one way or the other. So I'm going to sit up more and I'm going to even that out. And I'm twisting again. And then I'm going to face the centre. Hand to the belt, hand behind, relax the shoulders, lift up. Feel your sitting bones. They're not always easy to connect with straight away. So don't worry that you don't have any, or that there's something wrong with you if you struggle to feel where they are. You're not used to looking for them, that's all. And you will get used to looking for them. So find what you can, do your best, that is enough, and then begin to turn. Keep watching the weight across your bottom. In classes I often say that a twist is a twist, not a lean. And then face the front again and release the belt. And then allow your legs to bend. And if you want to complete the practice, you can lie down for a relaxation now, or however you prefer to end your practice. I'm going to say thank you very much for practicing with me in this part 5 of my beginners series. If you would like to and you're able to say thank you for the content that I give you, then my Ko-fi page where you can make a small donation is on screen now, and I would be really grateful for anything that you can afford to donate. But if that's not something that you're willing or able to do, that's completely fine. Please feel welcome to enjoy the classes however you want to take them. Thank you very much, and I will see you next time for part 6.